How could you? I thought more of you. We made vows to one another. I thought I had your back and you had mine. Good morning. Psalm 55 today, which brings with it this tone, because in it we see David go through the gauntlet of utter betrayal. See, David's been betrayed not just by a friend, but a close friend and a very dear ally. But as we go through this, we see David's very transparent in how he processes betrayal. It starts off with him in verse 6 and 7. He says, if I was a dove, I would just fly away from this situation. I'd get far away from you. I wouldn't look at your face. I'd forget this city. I would just quit this whole scenario. But he doesn't do that. He doesn't abdicate the throne. He doesn't close his eyes. He doesn't run away. He actually turns to face it. And we can see that as we read on. It says in verse 16, but I call to God. Now, what are you going through right now? Maybe you've encountered deep betrayal in the last couple years. Maybe it's a loved one, a spouse, a family member that deeply and utterly betrayed your trust. Maybe it's going through this whole crisis right now. Maybe someone's called you racist and that's cut to the heart. Or maybe you feel like someone's treated you in a racist way, either knowingly or unknowingly, and that's cut you to the heart. Well, how do we move forward in the midst of this? Well, David shows us a pathway as he goes through the gauntlet of betrayal. He says in verse 16, but I call to God. So he goes through it, but he goes through it with God. He doesn't take justice into his own hands. He takes his case to the Lord. And it says, evening and morning and noon, I utter my complaint and I moan. And he hears my voice. So David goes to the Lord with his pain and his moaning. And as he goes on further, it even says in verse 22, cast your burdens on the Lord and he'll sustain you. Notice it doesn't say that he takes them away from you, but he sustains you, which means sometimes he allows us to go in the pain, to live in the pain, to move through the pain, but it's him who sustains you. And that happens as we walk through trials with him. So there's no better example of this than Jesus, who entered the fray of the world, and he had friends who betrayed him deeply. Judas betrayed him for a bag of money. His other disciples couldn't stand with him in his time of greatest need, and he went to the cross and paid it all for them. Even though they didn't understand him, they didn't understand his love for them, he went in and paid the price it took to bring them in, to make them brothers and sisters and sons and daughters. What he did ultimately with his pain is he redeemed. And saints, I just want to remind you today that God will go with you through pain, but he'll also use you to redeem if you'll let him. So lean into the Lord, hold his hand, bring your moaning and your complaining to him because he cares, and allow him to use you as a suffering servant, just like he did a son, to redeem a sin-sick world. Pray this word encourages you, saints. Peace.